Hello, and welcome to the Things I Want My Daughters to Know podcast, the podcast redefining women's health, one unfiltered conversation at a time. I'm your host, Jacqueline Rose, and every week I'll sit down with leading women's health experts and real women to share their lived experiences, bust health myths, challenge outdated and uninformed narratives, and explore what's really possible for women. We'll talk about periods, fertility, menopause, hormones, aging, and everything in between. This podcast is for every woman who ever felt confused, dismissed, or left out of the conversation about her own health. It is a space to celebrate women, break the silence, and open up conversations between mothers, daughters, sisters, and friends. Please hit the follow or subscribe button so you don't miss an episode, and share this podcast with your daughters, family, and friends. Let's get on with the episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Things I Want My Daughters to Know podcast. And today we are going to have a really exciting conversation talking about all the things I love and that I know you want to hear from me. Joining me today is Staci. Staci, welcome. Tell everyone who you are, what you do, and we're going to jump right in.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's going to be just a really exciting conversation, I think. I'm Staci Lynch. I am the founder of Building to Thrive, and I created the whole health method because in my own life, and I saw a gap in other women's lives, that we try to take one piece of our life and change the trajectory of our life, and it doesn't work that way. We have to have all of the pieces in place to be able to really change our identity and change our life.
Okay, so you're using some big words and a lot of sort of grand, sort of statements. Let's try and break it down a little bit. Let's start off with the types of women you're working with, what you're seeing with your clients. What are the sort of the biggest challenges that you are addressing in your work?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I appreciate you bringing it back down to the nitty gritty. So I'm mainly working with clients in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and really it's that transition time of coming from either just coming out of childbearing years, and then in that middle point in there where you're not really focused on having more children, but you're not quite to marry perimenopause, and then into that transition perimenopause to menopause. And I think that that is kind of like the, if we want to call it the messy middle of women's lives, where we feel like that we're trying to figure out not only who we are as women and where we fit in this world, but also with that coming along with hormonal changes and things that we have either repressed and said, oh, that's normal because everyone else is talking about that, when we kind of figure out, oh, wait, this isn't normal. And then at that point, they realize nobody will listen to them. And so I think that that is where kind of that, that's where I think that hitting of the wall feeling, like, you're driving along and then all of a sudden you just smash into the wall. I think that's where that feeling comes, is not really knowing then where to turn to. And your girlfriends are all feeling the same, but they don't really know what to do. One of my clients came to me recently and said, well, my friends and I talk at work all the time about, like, we need to do this, we need to add more protein, we need to drink more water, but we don't even know where to start or how much to do. Yeah. It's like, okay, let's find clarity around that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to go back and ask you something, but I just want to relate to that point of, I was listening to a podcast and one of the women in the podcast was like, yeah, I started taking creatine and collagen. And then someone, like the co-host, said, and why? She goes, I don't know why, but that's just what everyone's talking about. And that's what I feel I have to do. And they were like, and like, what brand are you taking and how you take it? And she's like, well, I just, it was like, everyone's talking about it. So that's what I think I should do. And I'm going to do it. But what am I taking? What dosage am I taking? Why am I taking? There's a bit of, a lack of clarity around that, which sort of takes me to ask the question that you were alluding to of, everyone's talking about it, but no one really knows what's going on. And no one really feels that they're being heard or seen by their healthcare practitioners. We know that there are women's health and women's health issues are very poorly understood. So it seems that women are talking about it, but they're not actually getting the answers they want from the people that are meant to be, the experts. So what are you thinking, feeling, seeing around that sort of relationship around lived women's health experiences and the healthcare system that is supposedly meant to support us?
I think that we are kind of coming up in a time, and I don't know that I would say revolutionary, but it's different than when I was growing up, or when I was younger. And I think that the evolution of people like us, people that are, we are the front line to healthcare. We are that liaison between the woman that really just feels overwhelmed and confused with all of the information and the medical care system. We are that liaison in the middle that can help create and bring the reason why to not only them, but that so that they feel that they can be a self-advocate to their doctor to say, okay, this is the reason why I want to dive into this. This is the reason why I'm asking this question. And this is the reason why I am going to self-advocate for an answer. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think the problem that a lot of women come up with, which is so ironic, is that doctors don't really respond well when you go into your appointment informed. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh,
And
like I actually, a number of years ago, I had a specialist appointment. I had an orthopedic issue with my ankle, but the doctor actually was really great about it. And he said to me, and have you researched Dr. Google? He wasn't saying it in a facetious way. He knows that people are coming into appointments having Googled their symptoms. And he was like, what have you researched? What have you heard? What have you found out? And he wants to address it from his medical perspective. And I think that the response that so many doctors have is they take offense. They are like, oh yeah, so you've been 7 years in medical school and now you know what's going on with yourself. And I think women often feel very intimidated, gaslit, threatened by the way that often their medical practitioners respond. And it's such a warped way, because a doctor should want their patient to be proactive, engaged in their healthcare, knowledgeable, researched, and your body best because you're living with your body 24/7. Your doctor is only seeing you at best for 10 minutes every few months. So you would imagine that a doctor would want to hear from you because you actually know what's going on with your body. And I think that there's so much there to unpack for women. And again, how you see, and I think I agree with you, things are changing thanks to often these middlemen like you and myself, or these coaches who are giving women the knowledge, the information, the empowerment to really understand what's going on. And then if they need to really see a trained, qualified medical professional, they're going from a slightly different starting point.
I think I 100% agree with you that you know you better than anyone else. You've lived with you from the day you were born, and you'll live with you till the day you die, right? There's nobody else that knows you better. And this is, probably not super popular, but if you have a doctor that pushes back to you when you go in and want to have a conversation about your health,
Yep.
sorry, you need a new doctor.
Yep.
That,
100%.
that is, I think that there are doctors that are willing and able. I know there are doctors. I have one, right? Like, and I like that will come in and have a intelligible, intelligent conversation. This is kind of like the picture that I draw in my mind. Like, if you are standing in the center of a circle and you have people all around you in that circle, every single one of those people are someone on your team, on your healthcare
Yeah.
team. But you are the star. You are the quarterback. Sorry for those who aren't in the sports world. You're the one, like you are the one that is should be running that show,
Yeah.
because it is your life, and you, like, everybody should be supporting you. Whether you're talking about a coach or a doctor or someone else, they are working for you. You are paying their bill, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're paying them, right? They are not paying you to be there. So I think it's really important to have that kind of, and I think that a lot of women have to work into that. Like, that's maybe not something that innate in them to come in, but it's not overbearing. It is really just self-respect, right? So just coming in and having that self-respect, and figuring out for yourself your reason why. why is it important to you to heal?
Yeah.
I think you have to get down to that base root. And so it goes far beyond for most women just wanting to lose weight, right? Like, I just want to lose weight. That's great. That's a byproduct
Yeah.
of feeling great,
Yeah.
right? And being able to show up for everyone and yourself in your life, to be the best you. And that takes full health.
Yeah. So 100%. So why do you think that women in their 30s, 40s, 50s begin to feel like their body is working against them? Their body is what we often hear is like, my body is betraying me. My body doesn't do what it used to do. It doesn't function the way it used to function. What are you identifying as the reasons for why women are now experiencing these changes?
So this is probably not a popular opinion, but I think that the women that feel like it's in their 30s, 40s, and 50s that that's happening, that they're actually the lucky ones because there's some that have been dealing with that since they've been a child. So
Mm,
I think that the people that are feeling that, again, that's a blessing in disguise that we can't forget. Because
yeah,
again, there are so many of us that have really literally been dealing with feeling that betrayal, which is not. I think that's one of the first things to tackle is that feeling. But since they've been tiny,
yeah,
so with that though, I do think that there is some awakening that happens. That's a odd word, but just the realization that wow, I don't feel good, and I'm having a hard time keeping up. I think
yeah,
that's what it comes. It's just they're having a really hard time keeping up with the life
yeah,
that's going on around them, and they don't want that to be their reality. Does that answer your
yeah, yeah.
question?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And are you identifying reasons or triggers for the imbalance? For why? Sort of what is the, you come from the functional world, and I know
Mhm.
you take a very functional approach to your work. So, what are you seeing as the reasons or the rationale for why, at this stage in the game, they're beginning to notice imbalance? Which imbalance, for you and me, is being shown up as their symptoms: low energy, aches and pains, not feeling like themselves. Then you can,
Not sleeping.
yeah, not sleeping, weight gain. What your clients are coming, what they're complaining about. But what are you identifying as the reasons or the rationale for these symptoms? Which I don't have that word symptoms, but for the symptoms.
Yeah. So practically speaking, usually it's because women are not fueling their body. I know that that
Okay.
seems like very basic, but I have had numerous women come into my program, and I look at how they're eating and how they are supporting their bodies, and they're not. Just plain and simple, they're not. So they're asking their bodies to do things, but it's kind of like if you're driving a car and you're trying to go 55 miles an hour on the car, you're continually pushing the gas pedal, but you're like, well, I can't pull over
Yeah.
for 5 minutes because it's going to take too long, but it runs out of gas and then you're going nowhere.
Yeah.
So it is that exact same analogy. Like we are just pushing, 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 but not realizing that you have to be able to feel and compensate for that push, if you
Yeah.
want to continue to go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I really think it is just the lack of fuel and sustainability, if that makes sense, both food and central nervous system work, right? Just being always in that fight or flight,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
having that buzz, right? Just that constant buzz, and not taking the moment to just really be.
Yeah. So given that, and understanding that part of it is I think sort of what you said was really interesting, that in a way, women who are getting those signals, who are getting those messages, that's a bit of a blessing, especially if you're getting it, in your 40s and 50s. Firstly, because your body is actually talking to you, and now's your opportunity to, listen, and
Absolutely.
that you're only getting it later on in life and you haven't had to experience it earlier, as so many women have. Um, is there something, and I'm assuming we know the answer, but is there something specific around that stage of the 40s and 50s that all of a sudden wakes up the system, or the system has been functioning at a level that all of a sudden it can't function anymore. And because for those women who have assumed that they were good and great and functioning and managing and doing all the things and juggling all the balls and working and having kids and running around, and then all of a sudden, as you said, like something isn't working, the car isn't moving like it should. You press on the gas pedal and it's just not going at the speed it used to go on. So what's changed? And is it enough just to say it's just the hormones of perimenopause?
I do think that that is a big piece of it. Like we can't discount that. That is just the way of our bodies that they were designed, that, our progesterone is going to start falling, our estrogen start falling, our testosterone is going to start falling, our cortisol is going to rate, like not like the social media, like that we have to have cortisol to live. If we don't have cortisol, we will die, right? So, but it is, our insulin kind of raises, like there is that movement of our hormones. But I do think that we have the power, thankfully, in this day and age to be able to, one, know it, right? To determine that what levels that we're at, and three, do something about it. Like I don't think that that we have to just like flail over and say, well, this is the rest of my life. I don't, we have so much more empowerment now than we ever did, even 20, 30 years ago. But it is first knowing that, yes, that is happening. Like that is part of the aging process. But having the awareness to know, okay, I know what it's always the monster under the bed, right? If there's a monster under the bed that we can't see, we just know it's there. It's terrifying. Yeah. But once we look under the bed and we know, oh, that's just a sock. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Let's pick the sock up and let's do what we need to do with the sock. Does that make sense?
Right. 100%. So let me then ask you, so what can women do? What are the supportive things or the awareness or what are the things that, okay, we know this is happening. We know women are feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, gaining weight, not sleeping properly, all the things. And we also know that combined with that, there is an element of hormonal fluctuation. So what do we now do? Like we have the awareness, we have the knowledge, we are at least listening to our bodies, which is a major big step because so many women ignore until it gets too late. What happens next? How do we then choose to move forward?
So I think one of the things you said is that we have the awareness and the knowledge. And I think that those are two very separate things. So I think that we can have awareness, but we don't necessarily have the knowledge that we need to step forward. So, and again, this feels like, well, duh, you're going to say that because you're a coach, but that's where coaches step in. Like, that's why we're here, right? Is so that you don't, because a lot of the women don't have the time to dive into research, to dive into education, to put their purpose, right? Like the purpose I feel is to make sure, like my purpose in general, myself, is to make sure that my clients feel seen, heard, and loved, and also where they can also feel empowered, right? And so having somebody to walk along with you in that journey is so incredibly important. But if a woman does have the time and the attention and the resources to educate themselves, and to take lots of people's thoughts, look at the scientific evidence, right? Look at the studies, like not just the ones done on mice, but the ones that are actually done on real women. And, and kind of learn about HRT, see if that is a good fit for you. Fuel your body well, right? Like learn, what does it look like for me? I remember thinking growing up, and this is necessarily at that point, my focus was on weight because that's what unfortunately little girls and women think about. But I was like, I would look at my friends and go, what does a skinny person eat? I don't understand. Like my friends look like they eat the same thing as me and I'm fat and they're skinny. What in the world is going on? Like, I just remember as a little girl thinking that, right? I never understood what it looked like to fuel my body properly until I actually learned and gained wisdom and knowledge in what I needed,
Yeah.
not what anyone else needed. So it is looking at and learning, what does my body actually need to function well,
Yeah.
right? I need some sunshine. I got to get outside. I need to move my body. I need to, set up a sleep routine that's going to work with my circadian rhythm instead of against it,
Yeah.
right? So it is like it's putting the pieces of a puzzle together,
Yeah.
piece by piece, little bit by little bit, not all at once.
Are there some um, basic things that every woman needs to do? I totally get the personalization. I also totally believe in that because, there's no point recommending a strategy to a woman that is just going to feel guilty that she's not doing it because it's totally not aligned with where she is, with her family life, with her work life. Um, so I know you and I both have a lot of tools in our toolbox to be able to support women, but are there some baseline things that every woman, and maybe not even only perimenopausal, menopausal women, but that women need to be paying attention to so that we don't get to the empty gas tank situation? And once you are at that empty gas tank or near near empty, how do we sort of build it up again? But are there certain things that we need to be paying attention to that we are just totally oblivious to?
Yes. And I think that like I'm going to give you a list, but I don't think that that every woman obviously needs to jump into like as a checkbox and be like, okay, I need to do this, I need to do this, I
Yeah.
need to do that, I need to
Yeah.
like that is overwhelming. With my clients, I always use the easy plus one method. And so what that means is I want you to practice something, practice a skill. So whether that skill is eating breakfast with 30 to 50 grams of protein, that's a skill, right? I want you to practice that until that feels easy. And then we will add a plus one.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we add it. We don't add, make sure you're getting your protein breakfast and making sure you're getting 10,000 steps a day. Make sure you're drinking 80 to 20 or 120 ounces of water. Make sure that you're sleeping 8 hours a night of sleep. Like, yes, all of those things are super important.
Yeah.
But if we try to do them all at once, that's when
Yeah.
you have that all or nothing mentality pop back in. And it's like, well, see, I can't do it. Okay. So start with one thing, right? Again, getting your protein, sleeping, drinking your water, moving your body every day, gaining some muscle, like get in the gym, lift heavy weights
Yeah.
for you, get some sunshine,
Yeah.
right? Have really intentional personal relationships.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are the basic things that women, I think, put aside to make sure everyone else around them is
Yeah.
taken care of.
Yeah.
That we just put the basic things to the side that we don't even give ourselves,
Yeah.
that we give everyone else. And if we can give that to ourselves, not to negate our responsibilities and our love for others, but put ourselves on the list. You don't have to
Yeah.
even be the top of the list, but just put yourself on it.
Yeah. And I definitely know from myself when I was in my 30s, and I know from a lot of my, family members who are in their 30s raising, young families and working at the same time, there's no headspace for any of this stuff. Like maybe when you get into your 40s and things have calmed down a little bit, I think that's a bit of a myth also. But maybe you then have some time to start thinking about things. But when you're, you know, deep into your 30s, unless you've really started building it into the system when you're in your 20s, I think, before life starts to, run away. Um, I think I don't know what you've seen with clients who are in their 30s, but I think that is probably the hardest age to introduce um, strategies that are really looking after your own health and well-being because there is so much noise, there is so much other stuff to distract you. And as you said, you're normally thinking about, what does this child need? What does my boss need? What does the deadline need? What does my partner need? All these other things. And there's just no space to think about yourself. Maybe you'll go to the gym, maybe you'll, do something, but it's I think part of it has to be, that even that early education for women, like we need to start putting these boundaries in place already in our 20s so that they're there before you even start having a family, before you even start moving along your career path.
And I do agree with that. There's two things that came up as you were sharing that. One is sometimes, though, if we don't do that in our 30s, we are forced to do it. And the funny
Yes.
thing is that when you're forced, you can.
Mm,
So that gives me the thought that if you can do it when it's forced, you can probably do it when it's not,
yeah. Just
right?
explain for those who aren't getting the sensitivity of what you're saying about being forced to do it. I assume you're talking about ill health. If ill health
Yes.
hits, if your body yells and screams and all of a sudden you're paying attention, that's when you're forced to address certain things. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yes, thank you. Yes. And I like for me in my 30s, I had three little boys within 3.5 years. I had three boys in that time period.
Wow. Wow.
And so I know what it means to be full, like to have a full, three little boy life. Like I get that. But I also know it was in my 30s that my body was like, that's enough. I'd had whispers my whole life. Like it wasn't,
Yeah.
and sometimes some really big prods in my life as well. But it was in my mid 30s after I had my last son that my body was like, if you don't pay attention, you're not going to be here
Yeah.
to raise these boys.
Yeah.
So you have to pay attention now. And so that's what I mean by forced. Like my body was going into
Yeah.
anaphylactic reactions. I had anxiety, like where I couldn't go out of the house, like all of the things,
Yeah.
right? But that's what I'm saying by force, and I had to pay attention. Okay. So that's what I kind of mean. And I think you can build in space, right? Kind of taking your words out of there, even if you have little ones, even if you have a job. And again, if you go back to that easy plus one, like your kids need
Mm,
sunshine and movement just as much as you do,
yeah. Yeah.
right? Teach them from there then that that is important. We do this because it's important for our health.
Mm, yeah.
It's important to live out our purpose
Yeah.
because we can't live out our purpose unless we have our health.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great tip that you don't have to do it in a vacuum. If you do have a family, if you've got kids, bring them into the conversation because they need it just as much as you do. And if you sort of start implementing it into your daily, weekly schedule, it just becomes part of their life and you're getting the double bonus of doing it for yourself and doing it for them. So I love that. I love that perspective.
And they listen. Like I have
Yeah.
now my house is full of teenage boys, right? Like teenage to young 20s.
Yeah.
And even their friends will say, "Oh, don't use that deodorant. That's an endocrine disruptor," right? And they'll look at me like they're listening. Our children are listening to what we
Yeah.
say, even if we think they're ignoring us.
Yeah.
So I just, again, raising them up to have that worldview that health is important
Yeah.
will benefit us all.
Yeah. Okay, you are a functional nutritionist, and I guess we need to talk about, and as you've intimated, this whole, and I'm going to use the word obsession that we have around weight loss and how our body has to look. What are you seeing in terms of sort of how to reframe this? And you did touch on it already a little bit, but this how we understand weight, how we understand body shape, how we understand this new thing that midlife women are talking about around muscle and building muscle and nutrition and sort of the ghosts that I think women are really carrying with us with a language that just does not serve us anymore. So, how do you sort of see that from your functional nutrition perspective?
So I think that in reality, I think that we all think that we have a goal weight, right? But if I ask you or anyone in this world, if I said, okay, you have a weighted scale, you have I don't even know what those things are called. And on one side of that scale, or two choices, you have two doors, you can do it that way. One of them is your goal weight, right? So some person that might be 150, that might be 120. I don't know. Just pick a weight and so you can open that door. That's one of your choices. The other door behind it has it doesn't have that weight number, right? It could be higher, it could be lower. We don't know. But you are full of energy. you feel great. You pop out of the bed in the morning, full of energy, ready to go. You can tackle your day. You're sleeping well at night. You feel awesome,
Yeah.
right? Which one are you going to choose?
Yeah.
Right. And both of them, like, again, you could be smaller or like be in a smaller body or a higher weight or a lower weight in that second door, but you still look good, right? Like to me, like my clients, myself, I want to feel confident when I undress in front of my husband, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but what I am saying is that that is not necessarily being your smallest self might not be that door number two.
Yeah. Yeah. And very often, and I know this is also a very unpopular opinion, but very often the smaller weight actually is exhausting you, is takes is you're not sleeping as well. You have a bunch of symptoms that you didn't expect. Even if you're fitting into a certain dress size or a certain number on the scale, there is an element of as we age, our body shape just changes. Like our bodies, and that's not saying we all have to be unhealthily overweight, and that's not what we're saying here, but we're saying that being tied to a number sometimes is actually doing us more harm than good, as you've explained. But I also think that doesn't make room for the fact that your body shape at the age of 55 is not going to be the same body shape as it was at 35 or 25. It's just not. And I don't think we're talking about that enough.
Yeah. And I don't think it has to be worse either. I think that people insinuate that it's going to be, no, it actually, there are like my personal, like my body is way better than it was
Yeah.
in my early 20s, right? Like I was morbidly obese in my early 20s. I have lost 100 pounds 3 times in my lifetime,
Yeah.
right? Like I don't want to be that anymore. And I have kept it off for over 17 years now. So like I've been on both sides of the coin. I have been stick rail skinny, but I was also very, very sick,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? I could fit into way smaller size than I can fit in now, but I would never go back there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So I think that again, it is, yes, the realizations that we need to appreciate our bodies in the stage that we're in. But that doesn't mean that we need to just give up and not think that it's important not to love the skin that we're in, right? Like we can
Yeah.
do both. It's not an or, it's an and.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a very difficult conversation to have, especially still in our day and age where your body size is still a hallmark of your worthiness, how healthy you are, your presence in the world. Unfortunately, still today, your body size is still looked at as that marker in society.
Yep. And I'm much more concerned about go get a DEXA scan and see what's your bone density. Like, let's
Yeah,
look at that number for a sexy number, right? Let's go make sure that we are, what's your muscle mass? Awesome.
yeah,
Let's do that, right?
yeah,
Like, let's look at those numbers as well, because those are
yeah,
going to tell you so much more about your health, right? Than just one stagnant body weight number.
yeah, yeah. Okay, we've talked about a lot of different things when it comes to our bodies. And I guess I want to ask you, what does it look like to rebuild trust with your body? What does it look like to trust your body and listen to the messages it's sending you after years of, the pain, the suffering, the struggle? Again, I don't know any of that negative language, but, feeling or being symptomatic, having, experiences where your body hasn't done what you wanted it to do. How do we learn to trust our bodies again and learn to listen to it? And I guess ultimately learn to love it and appreciate it and know that it's always working for us rather than working against us.
Yeah. And I think you touched on it there. Gratitude is number one, right? If you turn your view to appreciation and gratitude instead of the negative, that's step one, right? And again, knowing that God designed our bodies to heal, right? Because if he didn't, none of us would be here.
Yeah.
So it is, just knowing that that is the trajectory, that is our body is always compensating to keep us alive. So we have to realize that the output is because of the input. And if we want to change the output, we have to change the input, right? And that goes with our mind, right? Again, catching those negative thoughts, taking every thought captive, challenging them and say, is this true? And that's the tricky part, is because sometimes what we think is true is actually a belief that's been there so long that it feels like a truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So challenging that and being like, okay, is this true 100% of the time? Because if it's not true 100% of the time, it's probably a belief.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so just challenging that, and it's day by day. It's moment by moment sometimes. And
Yeah.
again, when we have those negative thoughts come in, it's capturing that, challenging that, and changing it to be appreciation and gratitude.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you've just said. That hit me really hard. That sometimes our beliefs, we've had a belief for such a long time that it feels like the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that for women is reinforced by all the messaging we're hearing, not only from the messaging that we're getting, that we believe ourselves about our bodies, but that is really impacted from so much messaging that we're getting from around us, from society, that the beliefs that we feel we have around our health, around listening to our bodies, around what our bodies should or shouldn't do, how our bodies should or shouldn't look, we have learned to be truth because it's so deeply ingrained in our belief system.
Yep. And so it is just making sure, again, like you said, that your belief system is the straight and narrow, that it's
Yeah.
actually truth.
Yeah. And I agree with you. God, the universe, whatever name or image you want to use, did not create woman to be a failed species. We need to thrive and survive for humanity because we bring out the next generation. And I think the image or the assumption that women suffering is just to be expected doesn't really make sense in the design of women. So I think that also is a belief that we have sort of taken on because of some, lived experiences. And yeah, and I, as you said, I don't believe that that was how women were created.
No, we are
Yeah.
definitely, we are just, we're helpmates in so many ways, but we are also just so powerful. I think that,
Yeah.
women discount the power that they have. And really, if we can honor that and do it in a loving, helpful way, um, our world is going to be a much better place.
Yeah. Staci, this has been a really fascinating conversation, touching on a lot of interesting topics around women's health, menopause, all the things that you do. I ask all my guests at the end of our conversation the same question, and that is, this podcast is called The Things I Want My Daughters to Know. I know you've mentioned you only have sons, but what
Do.
do you want your figurative daughters, your nieces, your goddaughters, the next generation of women, please God, your daughters in law, girlfriends of, what do you want them to know about, you know, women's health, the things that one message that you really want to impart to that next generation of women?
That's really hard to distill. um, I think that it would be go back to listen to your intuition, listen, ask questions,
Yeah.
make sure that you are being a self advocate. I don't want to open this can of worms, but I'm going to use this as an example. If you are having trouble with your period in your teens, the answer is not birth control. You don't have a birth control deficiency, right?
Yeah.
So it is really getting in there and asking why. And if you cannot find the answer why, if they cannot give you one that satisfies what you were looking for and holistically, and like being able to put it in place with your beliefs and also how you think, um, keep asking.
Yeah. I so agree, and that resonates so much. No one has a birth control deficiency. And we've spoken on this podcast numerous times about the fact that teenage girls with irregular periods or anything to do with their menstrual cycle are just given the pill as, the fix it all solution. Um, and it can be really hard to keep asking questions, to keep finding someone who will listen to you, not just, if it doesn't feel good, the answers that you're given, not to say, well, they're the doctor, they know better than I do. If it doesn't resonate with you, as you've said, keep asking, find other people. It can sometimes be a long, exhaustive process, but you owe it to yourself to get the answers that you need. So that's a great message. And I really thank you for sharing that. Staci, where can people find you? Where are you hanging out? Where can they learn more about what you do?
Yes, I have a private Facebook group that I'm in often, usually daily. So I love hanging out with people there. I'm on Instagram, so I would love to meet lots of new friends on Instagram. It's a fun place to be. So those are the two places that I'm most regularly hanging out.
Amazing. And we will share links to all of that in the show notes. Staci, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a really great conversation. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Go check Staci out. She has some very interesting things to say and ways that she supports women. So please, please check her out. And everyone who's listening, rate, review, do all that good stuff for the podcast. Share, follow, and yes, definitely share and listen with your daughters. That's what I want you all to do. And follow so that you don't miss another episode of the Things I Want My Daughters to Know podcast.